Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Romance Unraveled. This is one of your co hosts, Jacob Bozen.
I am the co-host for July, Nick Todoroff, and I am excited to have one of my friends, Michael Clarke, share his story today. Michael and I go way back to when we were in Fort Lauderdale and looked at each other across the bar and said nothing to each other the entire night until later in the night, sent each other messages on an app. So ever since then, we've been really good friends. So excited to hear his story today.
It's funny. I think that I'm actually still saved in Nick's phone as Mike Fort Lauderdale. So,
You are,
it,
you are.
yeah. So my name is Michael Clark. I live in Tampa, Florida, and I think Nick and I go back probably like 6 or 7 years at this point. So, known you for a bit of time.
Oh yeah.
Isn't that so funny how like that kind of happens on at bars a lot where you just sit there and stare and then it takes the app to actually start the conversation.
Yeah, the icebreaker.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And he is still in my phone as Mike Fort Lauderdale, which he does not go by Mike. He goes by Michael. And his last name is not Fort Lauderdale. So anyway, Michael, do you want to get to your story?
Yeah. So I think for me, like in living in Tampa, dating has always been kind of interesting down here. I wouldn't say it's transient, but it's definitely a city where a lot of people are moving to. And I think a lot of people are kind of catching the bearings when they're in a new city. So dating's always kind of been a bit challenging, I feel personally. And so I've dated over the years, of course, and on and off. And more recently, I put a little bit more effort into trying to date. I downloaded some serious dating apps like Hinge and Tinder, which I'd consider more serious. Um,
In the
and
gay
so
world, yeah.
in the yeah, in the gay world. And so someone I came across on there is someone that I've actually known since back in like 2017, around that time frame. Pre pandemic, I can use that as like a point in time. We had talked online. I think my Instagram back in the day was public. So he added me, I added him back. We chatted back and forth. This is a long time ago. And at that time, they didn't live here, but they were from here in Tampa. Um, so fast forward to like 2019, and they actually ended up moving back to the Tampa area. Pretty close. They actually hit me up and were like, "Hey, I'm moving back. Um, I'd love to, cross paths with you, that sort of thing. And where's a good place to live? His family was like, about 20 minutes north, 30 minutes north of where I live. And so I gave him some pointers and stuff. And he said, I'd love to get drinks with you sometime. I said, yeah, just let me know. And then ended up moving here. We chatted. He's like, we're chatting quite a bit and was like, hey, let's get drinks, let's get drinks soon type thing. And I followed up and was like, hey, love to get drinks with you. And was like, hey, I just started seeing someone. And like the follow-up time frame was like a few days. It wasn't like weeks had gone by. It's like he moved here. We said, let's get drinks. And like a couple days later, I was like, hey, when do you want to get a drink? He goes, I'm seeing someone. So that's fine. Good for you. Like, hey, you were able to find someone pretty quickly and moving back to Tampa, like whatever. There's different ways that we find people, right? And then he ended up deleting me on Instagram, which whatever, no harm, no foul.
He
Um,
ended up deleting you, like
yeah,
blocking
like
you.
not blocking me, but like he was no longer
You
viewable. Like
weren't
he
following him anymore.
right, like and I didn't unfollow him,
Yeah.
So like I was like, okay, and he wasn't following me.
So he didn't want you to
So
see something.
something, right? And this is like, 2019. So whatever, no big deal. We go through that and probably a couple of years ago now, so this is what 2025, so 24, maybe like 2023-ish, somewhere around there. I don't know exactly when. Followed each other again. And again, I don't know who followed who or whatever, but you know, there was obviously a mutual attraction on both sides.
So you don't
Um,
know if he added you or you added him.
I can't remember. I mean, and sometimes when people just add you, just like you look and see if you have mutual friends, you just kind of confirm. And I'm pretty sure that's probably what happened, but he looked super familiar. And I
Gotcha.
think, and I know that our conversation history was there because even fast, to fast forward for a second, when we were chatting again, I remember scrolling back and seeing that there was a lot of conversation history there going back to like 2016, 2017. So we're friends on Instagram again, and we're chatting over the past couple of years on and off, liking each other's photos, stories, whatever, social media does to make us feel good in the moment, right? And fast forward to like this past like last summer, 2024. Um, we were chatting heavily in the summer, and I remember vividly because it was obviously in our chat, but I also remember doing it. Um, Being like, "Hey, like I'm having a pool party, bunch of random people are coming over," and for me, just like a side note in Tampa, um, I have a great mix of friends, and like I have a lot of straight friends, I have a lot of gay friends. Like, there's not like I'm picking one type of group of people. I'm always around a different bunch of people, and so my pool party was going to be a mix of people, right? And all of my friends are cool and they commingle. And so I just said, hey, and we had been talking that summer, and I said, hey, would love for you to like hang out if you want. It's my birthday this coming up week. This is in August. And I said, hey, it's my birthday. We're having a pool party. A bunch of people are going to be there, mix of people, guys and girls. Love for you to pop over.
So at this
And
point, we're at like 8 years from the initial
yeah.
conversation. Okay.
Mhm.
And wait, so had you ever met him in person before this time?
No, I never met him in person that I can recall.
So
What?
the
And you kept
first
it?
time, so the first time you would be meeting him would be at the pool party for your birthday.
Yeah, and I'm to be fair, despite me not speaking to you, Nick, at a bar in what probably 2017 or 2016 as well,
Probably.
somewhere around there. I actually am a social person, and I'm very cool with like a public meeting with like whatever, like that doesn't bother me, right? Like that's not weird to me.
Well, in
But
that scenario, you wouldn't be, you're in your element with all your friends. For
correct,
him, he's in your element with all your friends. So
and
it's a
that's
little
fair.
different. Yeah.
And let me preface this by saying, and this is between him and I when we had conversations. His and we all talk about our social media presence and is it our reality or is it our virtual reality, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
His social media presence has always been bubbly, outgoing, fun, uh, life of the party, right?
Mm.
And so having seen him be just like that kind of person that just kind of lets loose on social media publicly is and those I say publicly to his followers, um, that's still something that's worth writing about, I think. So
And question for you before you move on with this, but have you two video chatted at all? Like, have you seen him or has it just been text?
text. Yeah,
Oh,
that's so funny you asked that. It's a lot of people this day and age are always asking, "Oh, do you have Snapchat or something like that?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, I'm not a. I mean, I have FaceTime. I FaceTime people, but I'm more of a text person or phone. I'm a phone call. I'm a talker on the phone too. I can talk because I do it for work. I do it in personal life.
so did
So
you have a phone call with him at all?
no, I don't think no,
Okay.
no, no.
I am
Okay.
just baffled that this has gone on for 8 years.
Yeah, well,
Desperate times calls for desperate measures.
all
Not
right,
saying
enough,
Michael's desperate.
enough.
It's the dating industry
Yeah,
that's awful.
it's anyways. That's a different topic. I'll get to whatever another time maybe. So, anyways, he politely declines. He said, "I appreciate it. I have a bunch of stuff going on this week. Whatever excuse it was, and it was fine. I respect it." Again, to your point, Nick, it maybe was out of his element, and that's fine. And that's why I wasn't like upset about it or anything. So we chat through the winter. We chat into the spring. And when I say chat, we're not talking daily, but we're talking several times a month, maybe a week, liking each other's photo stories, whatever it may be. So it's not like we're like talking once every quarter. You know what I mean? Like there was some, continuance of conversation there, if you will.
Mhm.
So, anyways, we get to the springtime, and I'm just like, as I've kind of moved into this 2025 state, I'm sliding into my 40s slowly. It's like there's black ice, and I'm sliding into my 40s. I turned 38 this year, so there's not much left. in my clock. It's ticking like this, you know? So I was like, hey, I really just want to meet you finally. I was like, this has been going on long enough. And I was the aggressor in the situation saying, hey, let's just meet. Like, let me bring you to dinner, let me get you drinks, whatever it may be, type thing. And he said, you know what, I'm really into that. Let's do that. Right. So by this
You are the
time,
most patient person I think I've met in my life. If
uh,
I was if I was talking to someone and well, when I do, and I don't see them within a 2 week period,
mhm,
it's a no for me.
The one thing I will say with that is, Jacob, you are still in your mid 20s. It does change your perspective
yeah,
as you get into your 30s, where you understand life happens and you start getting to the point where you never know what could happen, and you want to keep yourself open to the possibilities because you've just experienced, if we're going from 20, right, about 15 plus years of being on a timetable. So I could understand where Michael's coming from as far as giving those additional chances.
I will say in my 20s, I would never go to a restaurant by myself or a bar by myself. And in my 30s, I'm very much into doing those things. So you, you know, you will evolve, I'm sure. So yes, maybe I'm patient, maybe whatever you want to call it, desperate, maybe, who knows? Who needs titles, you know? So
I vote for
as
desperate.
yeah, you would. So as I move into the spring, I said, hey, let's do this. And I have his number. So this is probably this is transition to texting, by the way. This happened last summer. Like we started texting versus like Instagram talking. So I have his number. So, anyways, moving into the spring, we're texting. And by no means are we texting like nonstop or anything like that, but we text. And so I threw out some date options. I said, would you like to do X, Y, or Z? And I live in downtown Tampa, right next to the arena where our Lightning team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, play. And I literally live 2 blocks away, right? So he's a hockey fan. I know he is because I've seen his Instagram, right? And so I said, hey, the main season's coming to an end. We're going to playoffs. Would you like to go to a hockey game? And he said, yeah, that'd be awesome. And I said, well, let's hammer down a definitive date so we can go finally, right? And so now I'm putting like the pressure on by saying like we need to pick a date, right? Because you can't just like you can on a whim go to a hockey game, but whatever. He said fine, and we went with a date. So I pick a date. I bought the tickets. Um, I have no problem spending money for a good cause, and I think that the date would be worth it. So I bought tickets in the 100 section, right? So they weren't cheap,
Oh, wow.
but I'm not complaining. I bought tickets. We picked a date. We go to this, like, this is the hockey game date. And just for context, like, for me, I think the tickets were about $400 for the both of us. And that's not cheap, right? That's not cheap.
Oh my
And,
God.
if I went to dinner with someone, right, I would maybe spend max 100 with drinks involved, right? So
Oh
this is
goodness.
clearly an expensive date.
Hell, I
But
need to be dating you.
but I'm not telling him the price or anything like that. And he said, "Oh, I'll split the tickets with you." And I said, "No," I said, "That's good. I got it. Whatever." So, anyways, we go to the date. We plan it all, and he's like, "Hey, I'm running late from work, but I'm gonna be there. Whatever." And he said, "Where should I park? What's the easiest so I can meet you so we're not late to the game?" I said, "Hey." I said, well, there's public parking at my complex. You can park in the garage in my complex, and we'll walk across the street because it's literally right there. And he goes, okay. So he pulls in, parks. We start chatting. Everything's fine. Great. He looks like his photos. It's important. And so we get to the crosswalk, which is 50 yards away from the garage. And we're standing there, and happen chance, someone that I knew to my right was going to the game with his friends, straight guy, whatever. He says, hey, what's up? You going to the game? I said, yeah. He goes, are you in Chase Club, which is the all-inclusive like suite area? And I said, no. I said, I'm in the lower today. He goes, okay, cool. Well, he goes, maybe if I see you, I see you. In this 10-second, 20-second conversation with this person that I've known, neighbor of mine, the person I'm on a date with. I look over to my left, and he's not standing there, but he's several feet away to my left, and I see him go up to a guy and kind of give him like a side hug, like awkward one-armed hug. Again, I don't care. Like I just said hi to someone. I'm not concerned about him saying hi to someone. People know people. So we're crossing the street, and he was a couple feet behind, and he caught up to me, and we get to the other side of the road, and he goes, "That was awkward." I said, "What happened?" And he goes, "That's my ex." And I said, "Oh, okay." So we're walking, and I could tell immediately his demeanor changed. So I, being fully aware of the fact that it was his ex, and I know if I ran into my ex, the one that I dated most seriously before him, I would also not be in a very good headspace.
For sure.
I was like, okay, let me kind of control the situation. Like I was like, hey, let's go this way, and we'll do like a little detour. And so I detoured him. We went to the arena. We kind of avoided the route his ex was going in.
Wait, hold on. Let's pause real quick.
Uh
So,
huh.
X, how long ago was the X?
So that's where I got to find more information out that evening because I was unaware of that time frame. So, so I'll jump ahead. So we go to the game, we get some drinks at the arena. No big deal. We're having fun. We're talking, having a good time. Like it was good conversation. We went to another area of the arena. A friend of his, her husband is, he works for the team in some capacity, I'll say. So we ended up, he's like, hey, my friend, she's the wife of so and so. She's going to come say hi. So she has backstage passes basically to the arena. She came over. She was super nice. We took a photo together, the three of us. And we then went to another area of the arena. We had some more drinks. We just started talking. And I think like the third period, we just ended up not going and actually watching the game. And we spoke for the third period. And, you know, it's like 19 minutes of game time, which can be, about almost 30 minutes of time right there, right? So it's almost like 30 minutes. We're just talking one on one. And in that time frame, I kind of learned a little bit about the situation. We didn't really talk about the ex too fully, but he just simply said, it's really frustrating. He's like, I'm in a better headspace now that we're here talking. But you're the first person I'm putting myself out there with to go on a date with. And I've run into my ex within 5 minutes of our date. So, I mean, that's a valid point, right? And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I admire the fact you're speaking that. And like, I appreciate that and I get it and you're good. I don't think anything less of you, whatever. So we talked, whatever. And then I said, with the end of the game, we had one more drink at a bar after. And he's like, well, I'm going to get home. I said, no problem. And it was late. It was a nighttime game. So it was probably closer to 11 by the time that we had had our drinks. And so I said, hey, just text me when you get home safe. And I wasn't really questioning how much you were drinking or anything like that. But we drank quite a bit actually to think about it in hindsight. But maybe an hour went by and he was house sitting that week, I remember. So he was about 15, 20 minutes away from where I lived. And about an hour went by and I hadn't heard from him. And I messaged him and said, hey, I said, everything okay? You get home safe? And then maybe a little bit later, he responded and said yes. But at that point, he posted on Instagram our photo on the story. And he tagged me in it. It was me, him, and his friend, and he posted it on his Instagram story. Cool, whatever. I don't care. He asked me to earlier in the evening. He said, is it okay if I post this on my Instagram? I said, yeah, I don't care. So we're not radio silent, but kind of whatever. The next couple of days, we chatted, nothing crazy. And I said, I'd love to see you again. He goes, yeah. He goes, I'd love to give you more of myself. I feel like our first date was not me, my true self. I'd love to, have dinner with you and we could just talk and chill. Like, let's watch a movie and just have dinner and talk. I said, cool. He picked up dinner. He came over and we kind of talked about the date. And he said, I had a really great time. I thought it was really nice of you to get the tickets because I refused money. He was like, oh, how much was it? He goes, these weren't cheap. He goes, whatever the price is, like, I'll split it with you. He's like, and I said, don't worry about it. I said, I'm just glad that I finally got to meet you after all these years. I was like, you were great conversationally online and in person. And I said, I enjoyed my time with you. So don't worry about it. As we talked that evening, he kind of started, I'll call it trauma dumping but he was just being very honest about the relationship. And I come to find out they had dated, that mid late 2019 into the pandemic. They dated through until like 2023. So they've been broken up for about a year and a half or so, before he put himself out there for dating, which I admire. That's fine. But it was, he made a comment the first night about, he's like, oh, because he drove an SUV, and he goes, oh, what do you drive, a car or SUV? I said, I drive an SUV. I drive a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And he goes, oh, really? I said, yeah. I said, like the newest, body style, the new ones that came out a couple of years ago. And he goes, what color? I said, white. He goes, wow, my ex has a white Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Okay, this
And
is weird.
I was like, and so, because I'm not someone who doesn't hold back, as Nick will tell you, I was like, why did you know that? And he didn't
Yeah.
answer the question in that moment. So, anyways, fast forward to the second date. We're talking, and he's talking about how his ex cheated on him. And when he moved back to Tampa, he had no friends. And he learned all these relationships through his ex. And then his ex was cheating on him. And then when his ex was discovered that he was cheating on him, his ex told all the mutual friends that he was cheating on the ex. And then they broke up. And then he had no friends. And so, me, Captain Obvious, I said, so why do you follow him on Instagram and give him the time of day? And
Yeah.
then he went on to tell me that that night after he left, he was texting his ex feverishly, asking like, "Why were you awkward and why?" And he's like, and he was the typical, you know, um, you know, woe is me, and it's trying to make me feel bad for his situation. And I'm like, well, then why are you giving him the time of day, right?
It's an automatic red flag if you're still following your ex, you're still texting your ex,
Hmm.
and you're still talking about your ex.
Correct. I agree. So, because I've
You should
done it.
have then, at that moment, Venmoed him the $200 for his ticket for the hockey game.
No, he should have been with me. I paid. I
Well, no,
paid.
that's what I meant. Send him a
Oh,
request.
request. We have
Yeah.
request. That's so funny. Um, so after this, I went to Palm Springs for a weekend with a group of friends. So I was away, but we were kind of chatting, and he was kind of distant and quiet and non-responsive. But then we chatted like heavily for like an hour. One like the Sunday that weekend came up, and he was just like, I'd love to see you again. I'm just like, I'm over my ex. Like, you want to make sure I'm over my ex. So I come back from Palm Springs, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's very like one word responses, maybe like twice a day, like non-conversational. And he's always like, "Oh, I'm never on my phone because I do it for work so much. I don't want to be on my phone." Meanwhile, I'm doom scrolling on Instagram, and I see a post that was just posted by something that we mutually follow, coincidentally, that was like posted like 2 minutes ago, and he already liked it. And I'm like, for someone who's not on their phone, you're sure on Instagram liking things. You know what I mean? I didn't say anything,
Yeah.
but I would
Never
think,
believe anyone that says that.
yeah, I just was thinking that, right? So, anyways, over the course of like the next 2 weeks, he's like very distant and like non-responsive and like delayed response, or the next day he responds to the prior day's message. So I basically said to him, I said, hey, I said, I don't know what's going on here. I said, but you've gone like cold on me. Don't know what the deal is. Long story short, I'm gonna let things be. I'm not sure if I did something wrong. If I did, I'm sorry. No response. A week goes by, and it's his birthday, coincidentally. And I sent him a message just to be nice. And I said, hey, hope all is well with you. Looks like you're having a fun time for your birthday, because on his Instagram stories, I'm still following him. And he responded immediately. He's like, oh my God, thank you for reaching out. That was so nice of you. I really appreciate it. I saw your story this past weekend of you in the pool. Looks like you and your friends are having a great time. Thanks for reaching out. It really means a lot. And I was like, okay, that's nice. So maybe the door's open here. Maybe I'll try it again. Didn't think anything of it.
So many
But,
chances. I'm at
but,
now. I'm on Jacob's side of too much patience, but
well,
continue.
there was one thing I forgot to mention is the last message I sent him. I said, am I moving too fast for you? And he said, no, you're totally fine. Everything's fine. I promise. And then he followed up immediately with a text message that said, maybe just a little, LOL. And I didn't
I
know if it
hate these
was,
people.
yeah, and
Oh
I don't know
my
if
God.
was it a joke? Was it sarcasm? I don't know what it meant, because I wasn't asking for marriage. I was asking to see you again. So,
The
anyways, his birthday,
basics.
Yeah, the basics. So, anyways, it's his birthday. I say happy birthday, blah blah blah. Maybe the door's open, blah blah blah. Well, that night I'm online and I was on a another app called Grinder, as many have heard of it before. And
Mm.
he was about 1,000 feet away. And for any of our people that are listening that don't know what Grinder is, it's a gay app that you can find people to meet in whatever fashion you want to call it. And distance is everything, right? Who's close by? And he was close. And his profile name, which used to be his initials, said JW Hosting. And I literally opened his app, his profile. It said JW Hosting. And as I'm looking at it, processing what JW Hosting means, which I think I know what it means, the profile disappears,
Of
meaning he
course.
blocked me. He blocked me. And I realized 1,000 feet away is a JW Marriott by my house. So there's another app online, which is a website that's very seedy. And I pulled it up, and he was also posting an ad to have people come over to um, the JW Marriott because he was hosting a gangbang.
Oh,
And
goodness.
so naturally, I got the last word in,
As a
and I
gay
said,
does
as a
when
gay
things are
does,
moving too quickly.
right. So I messaged him and I said, hey, I hope you're having a great birthday.
Obviously.
And I hope that the guys that you're inviting over to your gangbang aren't moving too fast.
I love it. Amazing.
And
And
that was
please
it.
send me $200 for the hockey tickets.
And that was it.
Did he ever
Wow.
respond back?
No, but I unfollowed him and removed him as a follower on Instagram.
Good
And
for
I
you.
Well, why
fast
didn't you
forward,
block him?
no, because I want him to be able to see me pop up or be tagged in someone that we know
That's fair. That's
because I'm
fair.
petty, because I'm very petty.
Yeah, we all are.
So
This
that's
is why we're
my,
friends.
and this is, yeah. And so I have lost faith in dating again.
Have you seen him out at all?
No, no.
See, you should
Interesting.
have
So,
taken my advice at 2 weeks, you know? It would have saved you 8 years.
Yeah, it probably would have.
well,
So,
the one thing that is nice, at least of your story, is uh, it's so, I feel like it's rare for people to still give like second chances, third chances, and still be very gracious to say, hey, I really want to treat you because I just want to spend time with you. I
yeah.
think nowadays dating, everyone just takes people's time for granted, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, definitely.
But that was a great story. Thanks, Michael.
Yes, it was great. I mean, I'm guilty of it too, though. When I'm coming after you, I hope you don't take it personally. I Most of mine is if it's like if I haven't met them yet, it's a 2 week period. Now, if I had met them, it's a different story. And I could go
Yeah.
for 8 years maybe like you did. But if I had not met someone, it's I put my foot down at two
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a learning lesson for the next one, I guess. But good news
Yes.
is
Right.
there's no one else that I've been talking to for that long, so we're
Uh,
good.
we're good. Great. Well, thanks for the story. And for our listeners, as always, make sure you subscribe and save. We're streaming anywhere you can get your podcasts. Make sure you rate us as well because that will help us go up in the algorithms and in all of the different streaming services. Follow us on social media as well. It's Romance Unraveled on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Until next time.